I want to start by asking Colonel Liam Collins at the Modern War Institute about this third ground assault on the Gaza Strip, and how long do you think this is likely to go on for? The IDF very clearly getting set for this ground assault. How much of a resistance do you think the Hamas will be able to put up, given the fact that they've been badly pulverized from the air over the past 11 days?
Yeah, I mean, Hamas will still be able to put up significant resistance, right? If you just go back to some of Israel's, earlier conflicts, these, insurgent terrorist fighters, they may not have the mass numbers of a conventional force, but they can put up resistance, right? Moving in tunnels from one location to another, seemingly popping in and out of, different stories of different buildings from underground tunnels. So they can put up, some stiff resistance. As far as how long it'll go on, I think it will only go on for for a few weeks, maybe a couple months, and not because that means that Israel will be successful about destroying Hamas, which they're not capable of, but I think it has more to do with the way Israel's defense is established. Right, they activate hundreds of thousands of reservists. They can't keep them mobilized for too long because they have to go back to work and keep the economy going. So I think it's more of once they get to a satisfactory solution, they've eliminated enough of Hamas's capability, enough of their fighters, they'll do it. But in terms of, if they want to, control that city and own it, I mean, look, it took the Russians throwing everything they got at Bakhmut, and it took them 10 months to get that. So I think it'll be more of a limited objective to really degrade Hamas, not destroy Hamas. And then that'll take, I think less than 2 months.
You're saying that this military operation could take up to about 2 months. One of the big challenges that the Israel Defense Forces will face is the underground network of tunnels that the Hamas has built. Now, Yaakov Lapin, we know that the Israel Air Force has been targeting these underground tunnels and that several of them have been destroyed. What's your best sense at this moment of the kind of capacity the Hamas has, given what's happened in the past 11 days, to push back? Was the Hamas, in your view, already preparing and planning because they knew that after the kind of attack they staged, the IDF will come in? Has that already been thought through, or do you think they're a very battered and bruised force at this moment?
I think that they are battered, and they absolutely knew that the IDF would launch a ground offensive. They clearly factored that into this attack. Actually, since Hamas took over the Gaza Strip in 2007 through a violent coup, it began building its terrorist army, this Iranian-sponsored terrorist army, and that includes thousands of kilometers collectively under Gaza combat tunnels to move fighters and weapons around. And they've also, set up these command and attack posts in multi-story buildings, so that they can have a good command of the combat area when they expect the Israeli forces to come in. They've spent years building this terrorist army, embedding it into the civilian population center, and therefore when the Israeli ground forces have to move in, they will be facing threats from 360 degrees, from above, from those tall buildings, as well as from drones, from the surface level, and from underneath, from the tunnels. And that is what the IDF has been training for years. So those are the kinds of challenges they're going to have to deal with.
No, so what part of the Hamas's military capacity, according to you, Yaakov Lapin, have been degraded because of the aerial attacks, and how much of a military structure do they still have to be able to take on the IDF when it does come in?
I think, that we can roughly say, without seeing the actual intelligence, what we can roughly say is that Hamas has been battered, but it's been very far from being destroyed, because in order to reach those core, what they call in the military, the centers of gravity of this terror army, the command levels, the command posts, the attack posts, the ability to produce weapons, the ability to fire weapons, and the thousands of terrorists that make up the military wing, that can only be done through a ground offensive, really going from street to street, bunker to bunker, neighborhood to neighborhood. So they're battered, but they will only be demolished as a fighting terrorist force by forces on the ground, by boots on the ground.
General Dillon, we saw during the Russia-Ukraine war questions being asked about the future of armored warfare, tank warfare, especially now with drones, the ability to be able to penetrate a tank from the top with a precision fire. The Hamas showed incredible military sophistication in the attack that it mounted on the 7th of October. But we also know that the Israelis have been looking at what happened in that Russia-Ukraine war and learning those lessons. From what you understand, how do you see this phase of urban warfare progress once it starts?
Good evening, Rahul. At the outset, I must put a caution that no two battlefronts, no two battlegrounds, no two battles are the same.
Sure.
We are just talking about Russia-Ukraine vis-a-vis Hamas, Israel or IDF. We must understand Gaza Strip is only 365 square kilometers of the real estate. North-south, it's about 40-42 kilometers. East-west, it is from 8 kilometers to 12 kilometers max. Tank warfare needs maneuver space. It needs elbow space. Wherever, say, it's about 8 to 10 kilometers of width of Gaza Strip, only about 500 meters to 1 kilometer towards the Mediterranean Sea, and similar distance towards the buffer zone on the east is what is clear area where the tank columns can move freely. In between, 6 to 8 kilometers is very thickly populated, densely populated, built-up area, multi-story concrete, as the co-panelists were saying, the tunnels underneath. So this is going to be a very, very sluggish battle, and it has its own complications. I said maneuver space, so armor columns cannot be used in conventional tactical assault formations, where you line up with intercept distance of 50 meters to 300 meters, depending on the visibility and the type of threat from the enemy, and you go tally-ho. It's going to be house by house, lane by lane, block by block clearing. And what are the problems of built-up area of such density, where multi-story buildings with windows, doors opening onto the streets, lanes and the by-lanes? A well-sighted sniper can stop a platoon for 3 to 5 hours by shifting room to room, shifting window to window, carrying his ammunition boxes, carrying his belt boxes. And the columns who are in the lane or on the street, they are vulnerable for attack from the ground level or fire from the 7th floor of a building, which they may not be able to see. So, and then the tunnels inside, underneath, they will be heavily booby-trapped. Once the Hamas vacates those tunnels and moves out, melting in the civilian population, they will leave them highly booby-trapped, so any entry into that would be very risky, and I don't think the Israeli forces would physically enter those tunnels. They will have the deep search detection systems. They would have activated their human intelligence assets, who would tell them the exact location of the tunnels, the explosives, the ammunition which are dumped there, and then they will destroy them by top attack ammunition, by either from air or from drone, or by direct firing of weapons, who would have been able to reach there.